Today I wanted to talk about drop shipments. So before we get started, get into an example I want to show you today, let's talk about drop shipment. What does it mean? Basically, a drop ship means that you're gonna sell a product to one of your customers, but it's not a product that you keep in your own inventory. You're gonna order that product from a vendor, and you're gonna ask that vendor to drop ship it to the customer, meaning ship it directly to the customer. So basically, you're gonna sell a product that you're not gonna receive into your inventory first, and then ship it from your warehouse to the customer afterwards. You're gonna drop ship it directly from the vendor. And that's a way to do that. So let's have a look at that. Now, to create a drop shipment, first of all, we have to create the sales order. So let's do that. Let's create a more or less normal sales order. Let's find a customer in here. And let's take the first one in our demo database. That's Robert from a datum. And we're gonna take our Atlanta whiteboard. And let's just put in this, and we're gonna order 4 of that. Now, so far, it looks like any other sales order that we would normally create in the system. The difference comes now. Let me just get rid of that one. Purchasing code. We can have a lot of different purchasing code, or basically it will cover 2 different scenarios. A drop shipment or a special price deal. Now, today's example, we're gonna talk about drop shipments. So I'm gonna select drop ship. And as you can see, there's a field called drop ship, a Boolean field, so there's a check mark in there now. Now, if you're using your standard page when you log into Business Central, you're not gonna see those 2 fields by default. So you have to add those fields to your page so you can use them. And you can do that by using the personalize and adding fields to the page. This is standard functionality in Business Central. Now, we haven't used any special ship to or anything like that. We're gonna take a very simple example. We're just gonna have this one line in here. So I'm gonna release that. Now, we need to inform our vendor about this dropship sales order we have created for a datum corporation for Robert. So, to create that PO, we're gonna go to the purchase orders. We're gonna create a new purchase order, and we're gonna buy this product from wherever we can buy that from. I'm just gonna take the example here and say this is Fabric Cam Incorporated. That is where we can buy it. Now, usually you would put in item numbers in here and buy them. But because this is a special scenario, it's a drop ship, we have to link the purchase order to the sales order. And we do that by going down to the ship and payment section of the PO. Here you can see there's an option in the ship to, and we're gonna select the customer address. Now it's gonna show a new field, customer, and in here you're gonna have a drop down, or you can just key in the number if you remember it. But in our little example here, we're gonna use a datum corporation, and we put in the customer number for that. Now, if there was a special ship to address for that customer on that sales order, we could select that from the list here. But in our example, we do not have a ship to address on the sales order, so we're just gonna leave it like this. Now, for us to grab that information that exists on the sales order, we're gonna go to the actions, we're gonna go to the drop ship, and the option called Get Sales Order. Now it's gonna show us a list of all the sales orders that exist for this specific customer. Now, I know it's the last one. You can see the list, that's the highest number. If I'm not sure which one it is, I could highlight the line here, and I could select Show Document, just to verify. Yeah, that is the one I've just created. And just escape back again and select OK. Now you can see here, it filled in information about the item, the quantity, And you can see there's a check mark in the drop shipment checkbox on the line. Now imagine you had more lines on that same sales order and it was all drop ship. You would see multiple lines on the PO as well. It will only include the lines that has a drop ship on the sales order. And I say that because you could have a sales order where you have one out of many items, products, that you're only going to drop ship one of them. The rest you're going to take care of yourself from your own inventory. So that is a possibility as well, that you can mix the lines. But let's take the simple example in here. Of course, like any other PO, you're going to put in the price, whatever you agree with this vendor, you can put that in here. So now on the line here, I can see there's a drop ship, and if I wanted to, you can see it's kind of two departments that kind of work together on this. You have a sales department and you have a purchase department. So you kind of have to work together on that. I'm going to show you a little bit later on how you can do this differently as well. But let's take this example first. So just imagine I'm the person taking care of the PO. If I wanted to see the sales order, I could do that from down here, on the order. I could click on drop shipment, could click on sales order, and it's going to show me the full sales order that we created for this customer at Datum Corporation. So this is just to show you that those two lines, those two documents are linked together. And why do I say that? I say that because they kind of live a life together. Because when we receive something, or when we get told by the vendor that they have shipped this product to the customer on our behalf, we have to post a PO, and at the same time we will have to post the sales order. So let's try and do that. So we are back on a purchase order. So now the scenario is, we have talked with the vendor, they have found that Atlanta whiteboard and they're ready to ship that to the customer. They have got all the information because we have put in the information on our documentation or on email to the vendor, so they know where to ship this. And they're telling us now that, okay, we have shipped it, it's on UPS, it's on a truck somewhere, and it's heading for the customer. At that point in time, we can post this as received. I know this might be maybe a little bit confusing because we're not really receiving it, but in a way we are, because when we hit post, we're going to receive it into inventory, but at the exact same time, we're going to post the shipment document. So those two transactions happens immediately and automatically together at the same time. So let's try and do it. I'm going to click OK. And we can see on our purchase document, we have received 4. Now, if I click on my link here to my sales order to see that document, so this is the sales order, I can see we have shipped 4. And that is where the functionality, the power of Business Central comes into play, because we have told the system that this is a drop ship, so the system knows that when we receive into inventory, we will ship it immediately out again because it's a drop ship. Now, the next step is that we have to invoice the sales order, because we have shipped, or the vendor has shipped it on our behalf. Now we just have to invoice this sales order to the customer. And we have to do that before we invoice the purchase order. And maybe that is a little bit cryptic, but that's to keep all the costing information linked together in the correct way. And actually you can't post the invoice, the purchase order, before you post the sales order. You're gonna get an error message. Because when you buy that from the vendor, that cost, that specific cost, is gonna be used on your sales order. So those two documents kind of link together cost-wise as well. So let's try and post our sales order. and we're just gonna invoice it like that. We create a new invoice. It prompts us to say, do we want to see it? I don't really need to see it. We'll just say no to that. And I'm back to my purchase order. And my purchase order has been received, but it has not been invoiced yet. So that's my last step. Now I receive my invoice from the vendor for what they shipped on our behalf. So now we're kind of back to normal functionality, normal procedure. We just have to check that the invoice we are receiving from the vendor, from Fabric Cam, is for 4 with a price of 4,359.6, and then we can post, invoice, our PO. And as you can see now, we have completed the loop. So there's a few steps in here. Create the sales order. You can see that's known procedure. And if we didn't have anything in inventory in a normal operation and we would provide the inventory from our own warehouse to the customer, we would create a PO to buy that. But in a normal scenario, those would never be linked together. The drop ship is the difference because the documents are linked together to keep track of when we ship and receive, and for the costing purposes as well. Now, this is one way to do it. You could say that if you have a business that uses a lot of drop ship, it kind of takes a lot of time and a lot of processing to make sure that you have a sales order and a purchase order, that you have a process in place to make sure that you do create that purchase order every time there's a sales order drop ship type. You could do it slightly different. Let me show you. First of all, let's create the sales order again. We're gonna create a new sales order, and let's take the same. And we're gonna put in our item. And there's no special setup on the items or anything like that. It's a completely normal item, like any other item we have in the system. And let's say this time it's gonna be 5. And we're gonna select drop ship, just like we did before. So far, it looks exactly like we did before, and we're gonna release it to say, okay, we are done. We have a drop ship. Now, the planning department could probably run the planning every morning, twice a week, once a week. It all depends on your business and how often you run the process. What I want to show you is that something called a requisition worksheet. Requisition worksheet is a tool for the planner to kind of get some suggestions, some input from the system, say, okay, what do we recommend that you buy based on your planning parameters and your reorder points and so on. Now for drop ship, that's a different scenario because we do have a demand. We have a customer that wants to buy this item, and we know we cannot provide that from our own inventory. We have a policy that says, okay, we're going to do that directly from the vendor. So instead of the planning department have to create PO by PO by PO to cover all the sales orders, we could use the requisition worksheet. You see up here in the top, there's something called Drop Shipment and Get Sales Orders. It will prompt me to say, okay, do you want to put filters in on, do you only want to have for certain customers, only certain documents? I recommend just leave it blank. If I click OK, the system will look for all open drop ship orders that has not yet been assigned a PO. So as you can see here, I have a line here for 5, and this is for that specific sales order that we just created before. And you can actually see here the sales order, just like we could from the PO. From the requisition worksheet line, I can look up that sales order, and this is the one for the 5 that we just created a few minutes ago. So this is popping up on the requisition worksheet. Now, imagine that we had 5, 10, hundreds of drop ships in here, and we would have to do that manually PO by PO. It's a lot easier to do it like this. So if we had 5 or 10, you would see 5 or 10 lines in here representing each drop ship order in here. Now, it's not gonna merge them together, anything like that. It's gonna take a one-to-one. So we're gonna keep that link between the PO and the sales order. So when the person in the planning department is ready, they're gonna accept this message and just carry out the message like this. And we're gonna accept it. And it disappears from our requisition worksheet. And magic, let's go to our purchase orders. Let's look at the new one down here. Here we go. It has created a purchase order with the link. You can see there's a drop ship in here. And on the line, we can see that this is a drop ship. We can look up the sales order. Just like we could before, we have down here, we have the shipping information and so on and so on. So this is another way to create the POs that will handle that drop ship on the sales order. So kind of two ways to do this. One is if it's just kind of that I would say it doesn't happen that often, you would probably create the PO manually. But if it happens a lot, I would use the requisition worksheet to create all those purchase orders that's related to drop ships. I hope that information helps you. And feel free to contact us if you want to discuss more about drop ship, or if you just in general have some comments or questions, please reach out. We're more than happy to talk and help. But for now, thanks a lot for listening. Take care out there.
Thanks for watching this video from NAV SEAL. Check out more right here. NAV SEAL offer assistance and counsel on any existing solution. So if you're in need of assistance, don't hesitate to contact us on navseal.com or LinkedIn. Consider leaving a like and subscribe for more tips, news, and guides to anything Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central.